Charles starts, I don't want to interrupt this beautiful beginning that's already begun, but I just want to say thank you, for coming. Thanks for being here.
I wouldn't be here if you weren't here.
This is a reading by an evening, a really special evening by our dear friend, put together by our dear friend Charles Smith and Ross Hammond and I at Old Lion Arts. And I really just want to speak to the nature of this being a private reading. And I want to just say that we're very honored that this is a kind of space that can be, I'm just going to speak to it, at this time, where we're at in this time, where I'm at this time, is that it's a very sacred thing to have a space that we can share and be safe with each other. And more than just safe, just like love each other and love the work we are doing together. And I want to thank Charles for all his support over the years, for the work of musicians in this community and beyond. And I just want to say we're just so honored to have this moment happen here at this time. And just thank you.
I'm going to read this weird little piece by Ken Irby, one of America's great poets that nobody knows about. It's a secret society that admires his work, and there's some great people in that society. It's open to anybody, but the door's fucking hard to find. Syzygus is a word he made up. As far as I can tell, it has Greek roots. It relates to eggs, combining of parts, two parts, generation. Syzygus. Ken would always read other people's works before he started his own reading. Sometimes at great length, he'd go on and read 20, 30 minutes of Mary Butts, English writer, mystical landscape writer. So I'm going to start with Ken, warm my voice up. It is great chaos, already forming into flames, and from the inner circle steps an eye. With only ankles and big feet and bigger forearms and enormous arms outstretched, an eye, the only body, an eye. The hands on out beyond the flames. The flames, the itinerant donkey of destiny, placidly but quizzical, and appeal steps out through. Have you been astride there? Are you come home from that journey out of the deep canyon of past life, at the outer edges of the trail, and flopping in the dust? He who travels with a cage over his head and with the egg to measure by. So tired in the kitchen you've gone to sleep with your head down on your arms across your knees. Come to bed, lie next to me, your close cropped hair against my cheek, our arms around each other. The stirring in the loins, the tremors along the faults that make the continents. To awaken to the actual absence, to all the other lives we carry face to face and in between us. And this is a little two-piece poem. It's this one, the long lines, and then he switches to much shorter. The child we were out of the war and the makers of the war, and the anachronism that is time itself, and time against itself. The choice of a life that we can only make by growing up, and only growing up recovers. To be strangers to the universe, to and in ourselves to stand. Where have they gone, those who brought us here? Where have they gone, leaving us alone and we on after them and the kids along the way, and come back again to the empty parking lot and the couple, aunt and uncle, parents, friends of aunt and uncle, who do not take us in. But there is the tent and the door to the tent. There they have been and there they will be, and there is no other key. Bindweed flowers in the median shrubbery. Dog scratches near by the lamppost, by the sofa, lapping water in the hallway. pattern of delivery, pattern of remorse, pattern of remembering, boskage and intarsha of the sky. And he always uses words that send you to the dictionary. And I get those two mixed up. I think boskage is like the intricate needlework, and intarsha is like intricate gem stonework. So again, bricolage.
Yeah, intarsha is like a pattern.
Yeah.
It's a pattern.
Yeah, so patterning, that's exactly what it is here. Pattern of this, pattern of that.
Intarsha pattern.
Pattern in the middle of the road. In the shrubs in the middle of the road. And bricolage is
Bricolage.
bricolage. That's not a wonderful word. Bricolage is an appropriate word for this. This is something I wrote 30 years ago. I showed it to 4 people. She's one of them. One of them's dead. Couldn't known it. Too weird. Even for me.
Now you got 4 more.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
Um,
I know.
So one of y'all better walk home.
I was gonna say, right?
It kind of has 3 parts. The first part is like a bunch of non-connected long lines. The last part is a single page of a matrix of words. And the rest is these little prose pieces, mostly in 3s, except it kind of starts off with 1 and then 2 and then goes up to 3 and
Don't
then
ever
drops
want to
down
get
to 2.
comfortable with that
Yeah.
structure, do you?
They hang out on the bottom of the page. You know. Impermanence is the rule,
I like it.
right?
Very true.
Okay, vernal pool, here we go.
Yes.
One more time. Vernal pool. Day slips in through thin bands on the horizon. The runners arrive early, bearing no message. Seeking reassurance, she turns from things to the margins of thought. A gray mist slowly lifts off the reflective surface of a rippled lake. Without warning, come to suddenly, their departure delayed. Their trunks move thousands of gallons of water against gravity. She is afraid the dew in the pussy ears might evaporate. Markings whose meanings did not survive the expanse of time. A boulder in the middle of a river dividing waters gradually losing itself. Every account a betrayal. Night delays the lingering crepuscular in between. Figures formed in a mind informed by nature with a small n. The etched figures dull desert, varnished rockshine. A relation of lines relating. She rehearses ways of remembering to forget. Pinyon and juniper signal a new set of conditions. A region of discovery explored in the metal landscape. Accrued meanings forgotten due to their lack of usefulness. She chases horizons forever far off her land joined sky. Phonemic clusters in the friction of resistance a sieve to strain things with. The passing stratus allude to the message deferred. Lifts off to reflect dew's evaporative expanse. To fill and feed the need of thin fur needles against gravity. Or like a rock non-functional, a piece of driftwood. Markings whose meaning will not survive extant in time. Fountainous, the fluid present upwelling aperture conceals its source. But for the mind that provides a context for its use. The littoral, a meeting place of disparate edges. Each brushstroke a spreading wave of color. She paints on water. Pigments sink slowly, drip to bottom, surface ripples, unstable, bleeding through. A figure able to suggest the idea of an object without sounding its name. Across an amplitude of sorrow, silence settles distances between us. admitting the unknown. A conversion of datum from the phenomenal world, not like taking language out for a walk on a leash, a set of exercises, jumping through hoops, etc. Her grief-stricken face inexplicable to the passers-by. The mystic landscape, myth of the center, painting sounds in the grass. A denial of every effort to achieve a realistic space. Lyric recovery and accretion of syntactic fragments. Ridge and clouds, or cloud and ridges. Lines form, captivating rhythm. All that's been left unsaid. Unavoidable, incomplete. Hope some music makes it through. One to answer. To step out or in, a new way, light aloft. Way? The issues as yet unsettled in solution. Ways of remembering, ways of forgetting. Unbridled intention of obscure source. Demands another, demands of another. Destination, other than out, unknown. Another invocation to the unknown. Mining resources. A line of words inscribes a boundary, wilderness. And if your description did work, what would be the product of its labor? Recurrent figures to hang a recognition on. She tries to weld a speech to wield against that which eludes her linguistic nets. Uncertainty a given, rules, ice fishing. Alluvial loam nestled in corrugated terrain. Enumerative singularities. What was left out? Something more certain than all. What was left? A clearing walked about. Mapping a distance felt awry. Her peregrine ways distance you. She finds the catalog of recovered exclusions, then promptly loses it. Sparrow's root leaf twig litter. A long line of trees unnatural. Concentric arches roof one another, granite exfoliated, all the insecurities of impermanence, nesting, painting on water, disturbances, a laying down of sediments, angular obliquity, metaphysical well, eyes adjust to a failing light, lenticulars pass behind Banner's back, would capture shadows of what she'd seen, a mockingbird's response. Shooting star, paintbrush, sky pilot, seems to be. Names. A forest is a place to get lost in. Flowers incantation. She continues to refer to a melody none of the others can recall. A calling called naming. Startled by their empirical impudence, she prepares a place for their arrival, a clarity found in extreme inarticulation, among flowers. Sorrow, silence settles, leave the stones unpolished. Testy skirmish on the frontier. Painting like that makes her want to invent a language which might express that. But recurrence seems familiar. Hanging Virga over a basin verging toward dissolution. Authority to speak, who's to give, and engagement. Getting it all wrong for the first time. Music. There was something about music, an open shaft, the endless arrivals on a receding threshold. That has always been with us, ways of forgetting to remember, bristlecone duration, changes dropped to further the melodic contour, reclamation project, which names it. She had lost that source, leaving them free to establish their own relations. Whose disappearance? Recognition requires recurs. Names it. Silence wells. What lingers outside? Their truth rises through a series of misunderstandings. Fog. She's outside, under a tree, unrelated to bristlecones. Lost, not lost. Hidden beneath an illusion of direct statement. Standing under what? Lightworks. The unknown seems to be. Echoes of what promises what? Whose tenor proves untenable. The generative finally becomes its own border. Rest and silence, a storm, a forest of voices, temporarily dislocated, hermetic as such. Her colors are all characters, outside pressures, words the naked winds pour into each other. Calligraphy, the actual lost let in, high pressure system, the construct of limits, nature's template, not to erase the mystery in which thought inheres, made legible, seemly, a cartography of desire, the problematic in itself. She says it must be written all over, cloud spent. An embodiment of words, she finds herself adrift to the silence surrounding long tones. Loose ends all. What is most familiar? Syntactic gestures stripped of connective tissue. A telling tale told by no one, no thing. Absolute stain. Only she knows how to read, exploring myriad confusion. Her words under a watercolor wash wander in the folds of topography. Character's color. The subalpine another condition altogether. Where to begin? They try to read the book she never wrote but might have. Again, which beginning? The singular, not all it's cracked up to be. Irreducible. Lost call to scene. Monkshood below. Something about music makes her paint like that, without a frame. Whose ears hear the wrong notes? Spheres, pilings, the bottom floor surfaces uneven. Within a dissolving mist, an opening appears to reveal nephology, just off the margin, Arctic plain, refusing all explanation of her discrepant ways, stain spread, awash, what refuses you, beyond reflection, migrations mark us, points beyond the visible, straight linkage flooded, a process, color sounding, every line a passage, the cloudy antique mirror cracked. Natural impressions to recollect. Natural impressions to recognize, to recollect. The arrivals ever deferred won't represent, no awe aroused. The players can't recall their cues. Forest this great music. Word clues sight triggers. Transports of the mind to the edge of. She tries to gather all the sights and sounds. But paint, a journey this passage through the physical world tries to keep pace with. A predatory passion for the real. Surface noise. An action in attraction appearance scenes. Corneal light play. Eternal windwork on ephemeral rock landscape records. Disclosure in opening that refuses recognition. Unrealized gems. A passage through to what destination thought lost. A waiting. Experience her articulation shuns. Rippled reflect. Perspective lines, prospective forms. Mystery enacted. The sight of desire. What seeps through. Misunderstandings, conversations depends upon. Source solution, retrievals, all stirred up. The listener must carry an implicit rhythm which remains unplayed, an overlap, which requires response. Certain power words wield, manipulated, storm brewing on the horizon, informs, knowledge of things allure, slippage which presumes a prior equivalence in the resounding chamber her mouth is, an image indelibly etched and erased, light's limit. She wrote it down so as not to forget, but later is unable to remember why something like that might be written. Instability the norm. Privileged speech, public plain. Fiction of a straight line. Friction of uneven edges. The withheld assumed. Her dramatic presence. To what end? An awareness of the space involved. what is random, behaves the way flowers grow or trees, the way a musical shape unfolds, chaotic intersect, phonic affinity. Just beyond light's arc. Her speech patterns overlay a screen of absence, a sieve, indeterminate locus of what we know, what hands never seem to touch. A tendency to flame, interruptions which might remind a reader of her own mind's procedures, subjective imposition. How many is enough? Met somewhere, something, sometimes it seems. Flute falling through parameters it traces in sound. Away, lost in fog. Starlight punctuation, their desperate belief in the natural progression of things. Quarry unable to touch the heart of stone. No place like. The turn and shift of endless combinations. Her coherent inarticulation and eloquence unspoken of. Breathless, they watch as she negotiates the rugged terrain, follows ducks, blaze not the way but a, meaning someone else's. Sequence, a habit of expectation. In the winter, the ponds all freeze over. Wind and rain appear to go together. Her echoes are promises. Dredging, how-to forms, which presumably correspond to others. Inscape, a modeled reality. Periodic vibration, mimetic surgery. Her questions lead to others, to an other. The rivulet's pool. Reflection shadows glimmer. Her excavations, raindrops in black ink. Their true names writ on birch bark, bird to rise as smoke twists in air. Overtones, excised segues. Belonging, who's to give? Whose recognition? Repetition belongs there, having... Oh Lord, my eyes just left. Belonging, who's to give? Whose recognition? Repetition belongs there, having come from what was to the present actuality a series implies. Whose recurrence? Forgotten figure, whose voice enchants? An incantation, whose responsibility? Reproducible, which changes both the sense of time and the nature of memory. Own, yours, hers, theirs. A lasting impression? The sound of, in buried light. Ghost town, tongue to tongue, the migratory word's brief settlement. Holes. A painting like that, a linguistic solution. Indwelling pool. Source turns to aspiration, true to form. Her life sentence, to read the OED. An ongoing exegesis tendrils fasten. Semi-quarter tones, multiphonics, an audible felonious assault. She wants to memorize it all. Particles, suspension in solution, no single image allowed to dominate. Impulse text world, on the way. That gets us halfway through. How are people? Do you want a break? No single image allowed to dominate. Impulse text world, on the way. They are, in ways she will never understand but shall speak of at length. Succession, procedural avoidance. The concentric rings, a chronology of appropriate germination, like flowers. Night's half shadows clarified. Moisture, fog bank deposits. Composure, imposition of composition. Bodies composed primarily of water. Sounding water. Inner flight. One sense of time is the recognition of all that is dissimilar in recurrence. Final still unfinished. Her solo. My images are incomplete. The orderly progression of a natural sequence has always been a fictive device. My fragments but another. Some may yet insist the pieces imply a whole. Shards of a coherent bowl to fill again and ladle clear water to our lips. For myself, I seek moisture wherever I can. Circulations, mouth to mouth, resuscitative speech. The dialogues are written down, then memorized. Passages of habitual inscription, curving out, seeking an otherworldly charm, black ice. Words spoken in or heard through water. A conversation where each brings a different understanding to the crucial terms. Difference works, windows as such, state of the art, climbing the crossbars of a not quite parallel construction. Second nature. She hears paint sound water, tongue to tongue. Music like listening in on someone else's conversation, only the key words can't be heard. Minstrel trellis. Caught between light and shadow, knowing 1,000 feet of air lies below, allows for distraction. Stylus knocked about a spinning groove. Her oral gaze, listening in on the memory of words. Sediments imply wasted hills. She wants to read it all, the conviction of the letters in each stroke telling. Percussion piece for sound, color, and meaning. Glimpse before the dissolve, fluid solution, crystals according to disposition. Difference works with a vengeance. Consider the source. Unbridged gap that keeps each other to the next. Various conventions people use to subvert that distance. Intimate. These striations mark the passage of ice. What seems most familiar, but a disturbance in the scheme of things. What scheme? Any fixed target and object. All crossing all risks. Well-meaning riddled text. Ideas may comprise the body of thought, but are not thinking. Tentative stills, true to form. The palpable presence of light. Or is it the wind weeps without reason? The notes always falling until a new phrase begins its descent. What silence speaks to. She strips all substance from her ideas so as to insert them in the tone row, so to speak. Whether one can stay quiet. Transparencies of sight and sound. The details conditioned by the larger structure. Nesting. Underwater subtonic whose bounds permeate experience. Remains to be seen. Said? Any assumption is subject to dismantling under scrutiny. Partial forms itself, beyond her range. Meaning to be sounded. Walking papers, talking leaves. To gather all the unremembered dreams. What do they hear when she speaks of nothing? What's been proposed as such in an ongoing process of correction? Its meaning lies in its desire to. Hand stroke on the drum, erroneous view, matrix agreed upon, drawing lots, moon glitter tips waves, to widen their concept. Phenomenal desire, eradicated datum, receding, the company of strangers, as such, what they fancy the work to be. The flowers die, the pool dries, the cracks hexagonal. Harmonic touch. She wants to be available to everyone, a verifiable affirmation. This is not the nature of a message. Sky terrain, inbounds, in play. The program notes trajectory. Follow your own ears. Do you do art? Harmony in the ears. With you, without, always with. Never to receive a letter like that. Come to, hear many hands clapping, music's over. Come to. Forever playing catch up. What takes? Each particular irreconcilable fear unknown. And it will exact its price. Every reading of commitment, now tabulate the weekly settlement. Blue stains spread red, adamant in the refusal. Knowledge has nothing to do with it. a dried grief tears can only hint at, torn threads of a cloudy dispersal, fractured wing, elusive counter, sentimental journey she can't let go of, all seems to be seen on the periphery, which calls into question all assertion, ever operative, as if. Now this, now this, now this, that, now these, ever trying to follow now. Too many threads at once, saying, I only come to listen. These the body's creation plays upon, and wonder what the next reading holds, to assume a place in the choir, hit on, beat on, pulled on, banged on, blown on, moved, water in the face, wet behind the ears, seeking proof that we do indeed belong, risks exposure, intentional conflict, behind the times, behind the signs, made tentative. What do you see when you look at nothing? Torn land rift, place shifts, the assumption of possession. She finds herself besieged by each particular's peculiar claim to breach intention, again making waves, which being presses on. Local insurgents. People empower themselves. I thought there was more. Her instructions are as follows. Peruse the shores carefully. At the right spot, you'll know it when you get there. Jump in. Wath made visible. Desert lakes, inland seas. To be in, see in. The skies suddenly clear, and they search the horizon together. She finds she can think her way into any number of differently shaped and colored bottles. Transcription, in another hand, the suggestion of a human touch. Despite all the bitter denials, completion drifts in sequential illusion, each in turn to plead its case, like flies, particular. Eventually, they will come to see how order demands explanation, unseemly evocation. Never to know what one is really doing here, but nesting in the larger scheme of things whose structure you can only guess at. Again, making waves. A predetermined inability to use the right words, or the words in the right place. Whose right of way when both speak at once? Peripheral visible contour, stripped down, tracery. Conversations where no one knows what's being said, although each word is understood perfectly. Comprehension of how anything can be out of context is beyond her. How anything can be. Speech parted out, hedge the impossible on the horizon. States of becoming, united, outside a central figure, without expressing its meaning. States of, without its meaning. A straight line, but an average of irregularities, a failure of necessity. Becoming without. Suffer affinity in the vibration of a string, touching the horizon. Fell brazen impulse. Calypso Parsons never saw. As though unchangeable substance were necessary or even desirable. Vibration of the air, heard, in the air, gone. Retrace lost steps along ancient human pathways. Sound depth instruments. Self-referential internal correspondence. Apprehension, the most fearsome activity. An instrument of curiosity intersecting opportunity. Plato, nature's rule. Asking, will it ever end? Cipher would give the wrong impression. Stills, a working knowledge. Newspaper rock. Still to emulate the freeze of time. Spotted coral root pushes through redwood forest litter. An act of intelligence abroad. Proceeding to beat the marimba with her hands as if she were playing a conga. Stroked on. Every beginning, a theory. Reading the world. cherish such tangential contact as it offers. Lines crossed, no precedent ever justifies, as if one fiction piled on another. Better yet, a working knowledge of the terrain, in-lodging deceits, seeing who could make the biggest splash, cut the losses, not as answer but to echo desire. What it's like, as it is, sparkle crystal dance, a sea of shining granite, friction a purchase to stand on, hand to hand, a human touch. Crystal clear, but not even remotely transparent. Matter to burn, stand by yours. Her original intention, forgotten or assumed, consumed by flames. Their knowledge seems to be intact, alluring. The straight-edge dividing line, another fiction of convenience, penumbra, disparate threads, black cloud sound to madcap song. Learning to read what will never be written, a variegated silence. It is not in the nature of answer they were seeking. The words, a text set to music, caught by a thunderstorm at the pass. Face to the mountains, winter light slant, ash smear markings. Story tells storm wells, red dust, charcoal. Dissemblance speaks true to itself, constitutive. In winter clear air, the crystal range snows distant shine. Intent, original framers. The language of the heart knows no rules, no bounds. Reality spells itself any number of ways, like and as and like and. The frozen stalks of unrecognized weeds, a list of attributes, one of many, a raven's rebuke rebounding rock to rock. All necessary, messy junk let in, denying the anticipative. A new process of apprehension brought to bear, impossible completion, necessarily, a natural history, access only perception, a blockage accompaniment. Nor will painting the frame do it. A furl of fiddleneck unfolds in February. The slurs, all the dirty tones. Exploration and settlement equally displacing. Spelled in the dripping colors of her notes. Grass and Parnassus nod by. A natural inherent. The thrust of a musical argument in each stroke, telling. She calls underwater, names, words, brushstroke notes, spells, glacial outcome. Not meaning, but habitation, habituation, searching the benchmark, bare interval, stolen word. What connects the mind with its thought? Topographic foot, certainly not the world, a mental escarpment, troubled by tremors. Royal arches overhang, Fairview's inverted staircase, cauldron, an eye for reading the maps and legs to match the ambition, like lizards. A world she might inhabit in among the gaps, solitude by choice of necessity. And when they lift into flight, the very twigs tremble. Banter deposits, hollow sump, buzzwords she can't let go of, galleries of a natural deposition. Every linguistic act requires an IOU, a running tab, an innocent taking advantage of, repeating pronouns, the wrong impression. Description as translation, natural as process. Impress connects the far-fetched's mind senses. Her defense, a mode of silence, a formal metaphoric permutation. Repercussive, sorrow settles among the gaps, the pilings, a lack whose presence continually eludes, originary, compression. Reckless roving, each legible in its turn. Stray thoughts, loose ends, turning beneath bay leaf laurel. Physical bodies in a physical world in glacial retreat. Each its destiny to pursue. Normative interest under control. Reading over one's head. Distrust in discourse. Snowpack, frozen wounds, awaiting spring thaw. Traditional spirit, conscious discipline. To relinquish conscious control. Her journey, some mistake for haphazard wandering. Reckless roving. She wonders what a thing is and how to extinguish it from the idea of it. Yet one more sublunary wail. One more feckless attempt to unleash speech, which fetters to loosen. Mental landscape passage. Sentimental journey she thought to be rid of. A fiction of organization, the body politic. All the words waiting for the right connection. What she'd steer is steered to or by. Whose control? Riddled by faults. Ledge soil settles. Insolvent. All seen through her perceptive veil. All done in time. To venture where no other has ever tried. Ever more difficult. Shards of a former coherence imagined available. But rock hibiscus. Crust under stress. The currency to convert the real exchange. The plot, a means devised to plot how it is one arrives here. Trace of a path imagined over trackless terrain. Testing cornice stability. Leaf node. Stunted serpentine forms. Means to disseminate the pollen scattered, patterned abroad. Horsed and robin. Enticing hanging garden just beyond eye's reach. Tearing down and building up. Erosion in the scheme of things. The garden made of wildflowers, still a garden, still a life. Word is you can find it tucked away in montane folds rivers reinforce. Everything reaches ahead, time's arrow and other fiction. The human patterns of behavior set against what backdrop? Backlit. How or who a matter to spell. Light aloft, a life bejeweled. Orogeny, but a portion of the picture. Metaphors of order, shards, the shaft's empty penetration, music as a modeled reality, true to form. Only the sea's desiccation. If only they'd come in order, the tumbled stream pebbles, meaning in reference to what? Word is carnelian shores. That it might have been otherwise goes without saying. Adaptive strategies, liquid turn. She found them surprised by the abundance of desert life forms, seeking life as we know it. In a child's garden, in place, it has to happen somewhere. Not quite there on the threshold of felicity. Trying too hard to think to the detriment of common sense. Sea spume. Inexactitude, one norm, requiring ongoing correction. Detritus of common sense. Sounds which rearrange themselves, crying in the face of beauty's terror. Quietude and ecstatic stillness. Limping. Dawn breaks, they say, night's vestiges shattered, sun's light aloft as they scurry to gather the pieces. A wholly other presence to clarify a shadow's outline. Needing to talk, the words unavailable, blocked out in type. What's it about? Whatever it wanders about, around. Limber pine boughs. The texture of words combines with the color of notes and rouses response. Again, making waves, spent sounds on sands. The landings stretch wood planks out, gesturing emptily towards some vaguely apprehended but well-imagined center. false hope to more, or walkabout. Rhythm that turns, time elastic, repercussive. Something to look at, slow song, leaving its mineral burden, inversions seen on the horizon, tonic to rest on, river song, watercolor book, registers realist conceits, dust to mind now clings to heel, fireflies faint promise flickers, new horizons bound, sight song, exactitude, in situ, the changing times, unchanging nature, unnameable. What's in a name? Yes, what? An image won't resolve itself. Just one long forward glimpse, one phrase. Each proposes its own progeny, generative constellations. She could spend a lifetime reading one. But flowers, still unfinished, final still, iris, nice. Old wounds lay bare, contentious discords beyond telling. Some fell silence wells, oblique tremors start. Impulse, text, world, others, passage, mental, access, markings, ancient, figures, betrayed, context, forced, sad, weight, reprisal, natural, process, preserve, rock, gallery, strip, down, compress, essential, speech, naked, need, found, wanting, still, silence, stills, itself, a lack, words, return, to, verge, presence, breach, untoward, familiars, rule, under, invisible, congruence, a kind, silence, shapes, to, echo, still, a life, old, bare beyond, fell, oblique, impulse, others, access, figures, force, reprisal, preserve, strip, essential need, still, itself, words, verge, untoward, under a, shapes, still, wounds, contentious, telling, silence, tremors, text, passage, markings, betrayed, sad, natural, rock, down, speech, found, silence, a return, presence, familiars, invisible kind, to a lay, discord, some, wells, start world, mental, ancient, context, weight, process, gallery, compress, naked, wanting, stills, lack, to breach, rule, congruence, silence, echo, life. Thank you.